Hey guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. I'm Shelby. If you are new here, welcome to my page. I do all things fitness, nutrition, and also do a lot of lifestyle things. I love to go to Disney World and theme parks, so I share with vacation stuff, but the majority of what I do here is focused around fitness and nutrition. So today what I want to do is talk to you about building a fitness routine that fits your lifestyle. So one of the most common questions that gets asked through social media, through searches on Google is, how do I build the perfect program for myself? And so what I want to talk about today is a couple of different strategies as to how do we do this, and again, to make it individualized to you, right? You can go on Google right now and type in fitness program and you will get a cookie cutter program that may work and help you in some ways, but may not be ideal for you. So my goal today is to help you with finding out, how do I make it a more individualized approach to actually reach my goals? So what we're going to talk about first is your time, days per week, and goals. So these are going to be your main components as to how we decide how to build your program. Depending on what your lifestyle looks like, this is going to change, right? We know that jobs are busy, family life is busy, social lives are busy. And so the first thing I typically ask somebody when I'm helping them build a program, or if I'm about to build a program for them, is how much time is realistic for you, right? A lot of times people want to commit to 5-6 days a week. Well, can we actually make it to the gym 5 or 6 days a week? Or do we need to be aiming for something a little bit more realistic? Like maybe it's 3 times a week or 4 times a week. So time frame and days per week, meaning how many days per week can you actually make it to the gym or working out at home? How much time can we actually commit on those days? Are we looking at 30 minutes 3 times a week? Are we looking at 4 times a week for 25 minutes? Maybe we're looking at only 2 times per week, but we can do 45-minute bouts, right? All of that's going to be based on what your schedule looks like. For my new moms or moms of multiple kids, for my shift workers or nurses that have 12-hour shifts, those things are going to have a major impact. And so my first kind of suggestion for you is to make sure that you are being realistic with your life. It's not worth giving yourself that failure mentality when you set yourself up for failure, trying to get to the gym 5 times a week, when maybe we can only commit realistically to doing about 3, because you're working 3 12-hour shifts and we need some time to rest as well. So those are first the 2 things that I'm going to be talking about as our factors to decide, right? So time, commitment of, is it 30 minutes, 45, do we have an hour plus, right? And then how many days per week? So 2, 3, 4, what does that look like, okay? Now, the other thing to ask yourself, and why I really wanted to make this video, is to actually talk about what your goals are. I love the fitness industry and that there is so much variety, but how many of you have followed a program from your favorite Fitspo, fitness influencer, athlete who's created a program, or that you can train just like them? Well, that may be all and good. Again, it may get you some results, but is it actually geared towards what your goals are? So what are you trying to do? Are we trying to lose weight? Are we trying to gain muscle mass, which is the actual size, right? Hypertrophy? Are we looking to actually build strength? Maybe like a powerlifting meet or an Olympic lifting meet where we're looking for maximal strength. Those things have completely different goals, right? And then there's also the fact that maybe you just want to be more healthy, and so you don't need to be doing that extreme level of fitness that your favorite Fitspo might be doing, right? You're not doing fitness for a living. So all of those things can play a big role in how you set up your program. So kind of what I'm going to talk about is, let's say that you are, in your 30s, you're a female. We're going to start with a female because that's just, I'm a female. We're going to go with that. And a lot of my audience is female. So let's say you're a female in your 20s or 30s. You are not really currently working out, or you're going to the gym a couple times with a friend to something like a group fitness class. You have a full-time job working 50 to 60 hours a week. So realistically, let's say we can only maybe get to the gym 3 times a week, right? Which includes your weekends. And let's say the most time we really have or want to commit, right? Which is also part of it, like your desire to want to commit that much time with getting home, having dinner ready, having some time to decompress, getting to bed on time, let's say is 45 minutes, okay? And then we want to talk about what your goals are. Well, maybe as a 30-something-year-old, you're thinking, haven't been exercising in a while. So honestly, the first thing is like, can I consistently work out? And then can I lose some weight? right? Pretty common desire. Now, I will tell you right now, if you're building a strength training program, you're going to want to also build some muscle mass. We're looking more at body recomposition, typically is what people want when they say weight loss. Yes, there's going to be some body fat loss. We also want to have toned arms and legs, which means that we have to put on some muscle mass. So let's say we just are aiming for body recomposition. And also maybe we're looking at, I want to run a local 5K with the elementary school that my kid goes to. They do one at the end of the spring. I'd like to be able to run it with her. Okay, so we've got like a goal of a 5K. Now, we're not going to get into specifics of running training. We can talk about that in another time, but just talking about how do we make our strength training conducive to also being able to run a 5K, right? So that sets up some goals for us. The other piece to then go into is the actual structure of training. So if we've got 3 days a week, we're going to pick the days that are most conducive to you. Let's say maybe it's Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday morning. Tuesday and Thursday is because your kids don't have practices after school on those days, and Saturday morning your husband can help out with the kids in the morning and you can sneak off to get a workout at the gym or workout at home, right? The great part about doing something like a 3 or 4 day split also gives you the flexibility to switch up your days if your schedule changes, right? Versus committing to a 5 or 6 day, 7 day program and we're running out of days to commit to or switch things around when life gets crazy. So if we're looking at something like this, then we go into what movement patterns we want to be including. Well, Shelby, how do I pick? There's 8 million exercises out there. I'm just being realistic, right? There's so many different movements. I see all this stuff all over Instagram. How do I know what to pick? So the first thing to remember is that most of our movements are going to fall into these categories, right? Our foundational movement patterns. You're going to squat, hinge, push, pull, carry, and rotate or anti-rotation. These two can kind of go in together. Not everybody is a huge fan of necessarily always including these, but I think they're incredibly helpful for core strength, for grip strength to improve other lifts and so on. But these are your foundational movements. So, right, your squat can be a goblet squat, a lunge, a step up, all included in a squat. The ever looming rear foot elevated split squats all get included in that. Your hinging movements, right? Any of your deadlifts, your RDLs, those are your hinges, a kettlebell swing, right? We know a lot of our movements fit into that as well. Push can be a lot of things, right? Push-ups or overhead presses. And then we've got pulls, which could be like your pull-ups, your lat pull-downs. Deadlift is also considered a pull, right? But we just want to make sure that we're hitting all of these foundational movement patterns. You can break it up into, bodybuilding splits of muscle group if you want. But one thing I would say to always remember is, as much as that's super helpful to have, like, okay, I'm doing arms this day and legs this day, as long as you're hitting these, it makes it a lot easier because maybe you don't have time to do 4 different days a week and do, a leg day that's squat focused and a leg day that's deadlift focused and a leg, an upper body day that's more back and shoulders. And then we have a bis and tris day. And what about chest, right? So if you want to just make sure you're hitting all of your foundational movements, we're going to make sure that we hit all of our major muscle groups doing that, right? Without having to do a split. Now you can do that, but for the basics of building yourself a progressive program, if we hit all of these, you're going to be in the clear. Okay. So now if we're going to take these movements and look at actually building a progressive program for yourself, what we're looking at doing with building a progressive program is a couple of things, okay? So we want to increase the amount of load we are moving over time, right? Which can be that we are increasing the amount of reps we are doing or we are increasing the load that we are using. Both of those are going to create a progressive program. Now, progressive overload is not exactly the same thing as this. Progressive overload and creating progressive overload means that as you are progressing, let's say you're doing a goblet squat and you get to do 10 reps with a 20-pound kettlebell hanging out right here, you get to the point where that load is no longer difficult enough to elicit a response, right? We want to build stronger muscles. We want to get stronger. We're telling our muscles that we have to break them down to get stronger. At some point, that 20 pounds isn't going to be tough for you anymore. Great, that's awesome. But that means that we have to increase because you have the ability to increase load, not just increasing load because we can, because maybe you go to 25 pounds and it's still really not that hard, right? That's where you can use an RPE scale and an RIR, and we'll do another video on that. But we want to push the load or total volume, right, with load or reps to elicit a response that is difficult. So I typically tell people on a scale of 1 to 10, you should be aiming for somewhere between like an 8 or 9 on the difficulty level by the time you finish the amount of reps that you have prescribed yourself or that your coach has prescribed, right? So RPE of, which is rate of perceived exertion, of an 8 to 9, okay? To elicit that actual progressive response. So if you have never built yourself a program before, a simple way to do this is to give yourself a rep range to aim for 2 weeks and then increase that rep range for the next 2 weeks. So let's say in week 1, you've got all 4 of your days, right? Let's say if we're doing 4 days, we talked about doing 3, so we're gonna erase that 4. You've got more of like you're doing some squat and push patterns. Great, you're doing some hinge and pull patterns. Awesome, and then let's say maybe we do like kind of a mix of push, of a total body. That is not erasing very well. And we include like your carry and rotation, okay? Which carry is like picking up heavy stuff and moving it somewhere else, and rotation is, right, rotation through the body or anti-rotation. So if your body is trying to rotate due to a load and resisting it, okay? So if we include those things 3 days a week, let's say in the first week we want to start with first and second week, okay, because I didn't leave myself enough space here, but let's say that we're doing 3 sets and it's 8 to 10 reps, okay, for everything across the board. I'm being generic here. This is just because you don't have to be that specific today, okay? 3 by 8 to 10. So if I was going to prescribe somebody an 8 to 10 rep range, what I mean by that is that you should be aiming for the lower rep range in your first week and doing the most you can do for 8 reps to get to that RPE 8 or 9. Week 2, you're still at that 8 to 10 rep range. Now can we get 9 or 10 reps? Maybe it's the same load, maybe it's a heavier load, but at minimum, we are increasing reps, even if we're not increasing load, right? We get to that 10 range. Then we can progress in week 3 to 4 and do a 3 by 10 to 12, right? So now we're looking at, okay, did I increase load? If not, maybe I increase load to get to 10, right? Because let's say it was 20 pounds. First week we hit 20 pounds by 8. Second week we hit 20 pounds by 10. Then maybe we go to a 25 pounds for 10 in week 3, right? An increase in load. And then an increase in reps by going 25 by 12 in week 4, right? That's just an example, okay? So you can do that across your weeks and give yourself a rep range to allow you to have some growth that you are aiming for in both, again, load and reps, right? Now that reps part can also be that you're increasing the amount of sets, right? So total reps being higher. So you could technically do 3 by 8 for 4 weeks, or I'm sorry, start with 3 by 8 and do that for 2 weeks, or 3 by 8 to 10, and then go to a 4 by 8 to 10, thereby increasing the amount of work you're doing by increasing total reps by adding an additional set, okay? So this is a very simplified version, but allows you to progress over time. Now, if I'm aiming for more of a body recomp plus a little bit of endurance, I'm likely not going to go below 8 reps, because for endurance, I don't need to be hanging out in a 1 to 6 rep range, which is more of your maximal strength. We're going to do more of a hypertrophy, which is maybe 6, but like an 8 to 12 or 15, and maybe even do some sets of things that are higher rep, especially when it comes to the lower body exercises like your lunges and step ups. We will push those 15 to 20, or maybe do a minute long of step ups, right? A time frame, a time duration instead, to increase the amount of work done on the legs to help with, again, strengthening them for that endurance portion there, okay? So again, very simplified, but what we want to first address is your time and days a week you're able to commit, what your actual goal is, right? Are we aiming for hypertrophy, endurance, maximal strength, maybe a combination of all of those things, and we'll get into kind of how that can be a lot more difficult to program for, and a little bit more, even more so individualized. We want to include all of our major movement patterns, and again, this is where you get to have the fun of individualizing it to you. You pick movement patterns that you want to improve, or maybe the ones that you like. Your coach will likely push you to do some ones that you don't like. So I highly encourage, if you're building your own program, to still do movements that you maybe don't love, like rear foot elevated split squats, or Maybe it's a deadlift for you, you know, whatever it may be. A lot of ladies don't like the bench press because it's difficult, but great for you to include. So have a good range of exercise selection. And at minimum, build on the same exercises for 4 weeks. You are not in need of switching up your exercises every single week. I typically say pick somewhere between 4 to 6 exercises that are working whatever your target is for that day. So if it's squat and push, right, or hinge and pull, or maybe it's just a whole lower body focused day, you're going to pick 4 to 6 exercises that you're going to work hard at. We don't need to do 15 different exercises in one day. 4 to 6 exercises, 3 to 4 sets. Increase your reps or load or both over time because it is necessary to elicit that response that's an RPE 8 to 9 over time. Doing that is going to give you results. If you are consistent with that, minimum 4 weeks, you can do 6 weeks, you can do 8 weeks, right? Honestly, you could do longer than that if you wanted to, but most people get a little bored and want to switch things up after that. So you will continue to do the major movement patterns for the rest of your life if you're going to continue to strength train. We can vary them by, you know, making them unilateral, bilateral, and all the fun variations and whatnot, but stick to the basics. Minimum 4 weeks of working through them. Again, RPE 8 to 9, 4 to 6 exercises, and there you have it. So I hope that this was helpful for you starting out your first, you know, building your own workout program. I would love for you to ask any questions you may have in the comments below. A lot of nuanced things will probably come up. That's typically how it goes. What about this situation or that? But again, this is just a generalized version, okay? Where do you start? Here's your skeleton of your program, and then you get to take it and individualize it to what you are looking for. So if you enjoyed this, go ahead and hit that subscribe button down below. Like this video, and again, if you have any questions, comments, concerns, leave them below. I love chatting and talking shop with other coaches or with fitness enthusiasts or newbies. So feel free to do that. Check out my other videos, and you can always find me on Instagram at StrongLikeShelby. We'll see you next time.